On the evening of August 10th, 2016, a man named Anthony called 911 and asked to be taken to the hospital. He told the 911 operator that he had a history of mental illness and that he hadn't been taking his medication. Anthony also said that he was having a lot of anxiety and he was afraid of one of the people that he was with. Then he abruptly hung up the call. The 911 operator immediately called him back and surprisingly, he answered. Anthony told the operator that he was at an adult video store on Mockingbird Lane in Dallas, Texas. In the background of the call, sounds of honking and people arguing could be heard. Then another 911 call came in from a concerned citizen, reporting that a man was running up and down the highway and impeding traffic on Mockingbird Lane. A private security guard who was working nearby also called 911, and he reported the individual as well and even said that he thought he might be on drugs. The dispatcher requested that officers from the Dallas Police Department respond to a crisis intervention training situation and described Anthony as a white male with schizophrenia who was off his medication. Officers from the DPD responded to the scene shortly after, but what happened next remained a mystery for almost 3 years. This is Vicky. She's Anthony's mother, and when she couldn't reach Anthony, she started to get worried. And it wasn't long before she received a call from her ex-husband informing her that their 32-year-old son had passed away in DPD custody. Vicky was shocked. Anthony had struggled with mental health issues and some drug abuse problems, but he still lived a very productive and fruitful life. He was university educated. He made $250K a year working at a trucking logistics firm and had a son and a fiance. Anthony had been put on probation once for a DUI, but that was essentially the extent of his criminal record. So needless to say, Vicky was confused, disturbed, and deeply saddened all at once. Vicky's ex-husband wasn't able to provide her with any details about what had happened, so she decided to call DPD headquarters and find out for herself. Each time Vicky spoke with someone at the department, they gave her a different story about what had happened to her son. One officer told her that Anthony had had a heart attack while sitting at a bar. Another officer told her that they found him dead laying next to his car. And at one point she was even told that he was placed into an ambulance with no issues. Vicky had already visited the morgue to see her son's body, and she noticed then that he had bruising on his arms and grass and dirt on his face and in his mouth. And at that moment, Vicky knew that the stories that the department had been telling her couldn't be true. In mid-August, a Dallas County medical examiner ruled Anthony's death a homicide and determined the cause of death to be sudden cardiac arrest caused by the effects of cocaine and being heavily restrained. About 2 weeks after Anthony's death, Vicky still hadn't heard anything from the DPD, so she decided to submit a public records request. Her form read simply, "I want to know what happened," along with requesting all the footage and documentation associated with the encounter. By this time, the Dallas Morning News had caught wind of the story, and reporter Carrie Aspinwall started trying to help Vicky get answers. Carrie started digging through the city's database for police incidents from the month that the incident had occurred, and she eventually found a bare-bones report that a man named Anthony had died for unknown reasons on the same day of this interaction. Carrie knew that if Anthony had died in police custody, then the officers were required to fill out an in-custody death report and send it to the Texas Attorney General. So she submitted a public records request for that document, along with everything else that Vicky had already requested. Both Carrie and Vicky were stonewalled by the department and told that their requests would not be fulfilled because of an ongoing investigation. The department refused to release anything. No reports, no footage, no official acknowledgement of anything. Anthony's mother was left in the dark with no answers about what had happened to her son. And at this point, Vicky was left with no choice but to file a complaint against the officers and the city. And despite not knowing what really happened, who was involved, or why the department was being so secretive, she hired an attorney and they managed to put together a claim based on what little information they had. The idea was that if Vicky filed a lawsuit lawsuit, then the department would be forced to share the footage and documents of the encounter through the discovery process. But it wasn't until April of the following year, over 8 months since Anthony had passed away, that Vicky was allowed to see the footage I'm about to show you now. The first few seconds of footage doesn't have any audio, but what we know is that when the officers first arrived on the scene, Anthony had already been subdued and handcuffed by 2 private security guards. And that's when the Dallas officers took over the scene.
Help me! Help me! Hey, what's up? Hey, look, Tony. Look at me, bro.
Hey,
Tony,
chill out, man.
Get me, gun. Get me. Please get me. Just take me down.
No, you're fine.
Don't hurt me.
We're not gonna hurt you, bro. We're not gonna hurt you, bro.
Relax, man. No. Get you some help, Tony. Relax, man. Just stay down.
Hey,
Tony. No. Tony. Ah!
Stop it.
Oh no, please.
You're gonna be all right. You're gonna be all
Tony.
right.
What's your last name, Tony? Please.
We're not gonna hurt you, okay? You need to relax.
Officer Dustin Dillard, whose body camera we're watching right now, along with Officer Danny Vasquez, pinned Anthony to the ground and placed their knees on his back.
What did you take today? What did you take?
I'll tell you, but you gotta let me go a little bit.
Hey,
Help me!
Anthony stopped struggling with the officers about a minute and a half after the officers placed him on the ground, but they continued to hold all their body weight on him anyway.
Tony, relax. You don't need to be squirming, man.
stop.
We're trying to get you help, man.
Stop.
All right? Okay, stop. Stop. Please leave me alone.
At one point, the officers even uncuffed Anthony so they could give the cuffs back to the security guard and place him in their own cuffs, and he didn't resist at all.
Help me! Help me!
Hey, I'm gonna try to change the cuffs.
Okay.
That way we don't have to worry about it once he's up.
Yeah.
Relax.
You're gonna be all right, Tony.
When paramedics finally arrived on the scene, Anthony had been pinned to the ground for almost 9 minutes, and laughter can be heard in the background as Anthony struggles to breathe and falls deeper into his psychosis.
He's trying to help you out, okay? He's trying to help you out, okay? You're doing good. You need to relax. This is not schizophrenia. He took something. Hey, Tony, what'd you take?
Well, they can both ride in the back. I'll drive the ambulance.
Over the course of the next several minutes, Anthony continued to beg the officers for help, with each plea growing more and more faint. As the officers and paramedics stood around laughing and joking, Anthony slowly faded into unconsciousness. The officers eventually loaded Anthony onto a gurney, still completely unaware that he was in the middle of cardiac arrest. It wasn't until he was being loaded into the ambulance that the officers even considered that something might be wrong.
Is he knocked out or he ain't dead, is he?
Nah, he just moves.
Oh, okay.
I think I'll go freak.
He didn't just die down there, did he?
I don't think he did.
Is he breathing? I hope I didn't kill him.
What's all this weed shit?
I'll light it.
I love how this became a weed. Yeah, we ain't friends.
When Anthony got into the back of the ambulance, the paramedics almost immediately realized that he didn't have a pulse, and one of the officers began chest compressions. But it was too late, and Anthony would never regain consciousness. Vicky was absolutely devastated after seeing what had happened to her son, and she wasn't shy about letting everyone know how she felt.
When you turn on the news, you see this, the Dallas police found a body in this creek or that road and all this stuff. Well, that's what they told me. They found a body. How many people did they tell they found a body? How many other mothers are out there that don't know what happened to their child? How many stories do they tell all the mothers that they found a body, that they were happy and waved to the cops and thanked them?
Although Vicky and her attorney had been allowed to view the footage, a federal judge issued a protective order barring the footage from being publicly released, despite the wishes of Anthony's family. But although the public wasn't allowed to view the footage, Vicky and her attorney now had everything they needed to fill in the gaps about what happened and proceed with a federal lawsuit. Two major legal battles were happening at the same time, with one more on the horizon. Vicky and her attorney were suing the officers and the city. Dallas Morning News filed a court motion to have the footage publicly released, and rumors were already circulating that some of the officers involved might face criminal charges. On September 28, 2017, almost a year after Anthony's death, the Dallas County District Attorney announced that officers were under investigation in relation to the incident. And it wasn't long before that investigation yielded some results.
Police officers received criminal indictments after the death of a man in their custody. Another officer is expected to face the same charge. Our Steve Pickett live along Mockingbird near Harry Hines tonight, where Tony Timpa died.
The restraint involved these men. A grand jury indicted Dallas police officer Danny Vasquez and Sergeant Kevin Mansell. The charge is deadly conduct.
Both Vicky's case and the Dallas Morning News' court motion moved forward without very much progress. For the next 2 years, both cases inched their way through the courts side by side, and Anthony's case fell completely out of the mainstream media news cycle. That was until the Dallas Morning News actually got their hands on the footage.
The public is seeing exactly how an unarmed man died in Dallas police custody in 2016. Tony Timpa had called police himself because he was having a mental issue, but he was dead by the end of the encounter. Alana Otler takes a look at newly released police video, but we do warn you, some viewers may find this video disturbing.
With Timpa's hands cuffed and his feet zip-tied, officers pin him to the ground. The video shows Dillard putting his knee into Timpa's back for roughly 14 minutes.
The footage outraged many people in the local community of Dallas. But this was before George Floyd and all of the social unrest about policing, and it still didn't last very long in the mainstream cycle. It did make national headlines, and it was eventually used as a rhetorical talking point on racially charged policing. But it was quickly drowned out because police accountability wasn't a mainstream topic at the time like it is today. In March of 2019, over a year after they were indicted, the Dallas County DA dismissed all charges against all 3 officers. But this was after the medical examiners who had initially testified in front of a grand jury stated that they would not testify against the officers in a criminal case because they didn't think they did anything wrong. When the footage was finally released, Anthony's family's case was still stuck in the limbo of court filings, motions, and other red tape, and was still making slow progress. But 1 year later, the case would receive its first setback when a federal judge ruled that the officers involved were all entitled to qualified immunity. This was devastating news, and I'm sure that Anthony's family felt like they would never get justice. And this is the point where most people would just give up. That wasn't on the table for Vicky. She was going to get justice no matter how long it took. So Anthony's family appealed the ruling, and the case eventually made it before the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals about a year later.
The federal appeals court says 4 Dallas police officers are not protected from liability for the 2016 death of a man who was in their custody. Tony Timpa was in a prone position and subdued by Dallas police officers for more than 14 minutes. The appeals court says he was no longer resisting after 9 minutes and that the continued use of force was not only excessive, but ultimately deadly.
So in a huge victory for the Timpa family, the Fifth Circuit reversed the lower court's decision and ruled that the officers were not entitled to qualified immunity. The state immediately appealed this decision to the Supreme Court, but another year later, the court refused to hear the case and agreed with the Fifth Circuit's ruling. And that meant that the Timpa case would be going to trial.
The long-awaited civil trial against 4 Dallas police officers in the death of Tony Timpa is set to begin yet again. In 2016, Tony Timpa died in police custody. Criminal charges against 4 Dallas police officers were dropped. But the civil trial in a wrongful death lawsuit is scheduled to start tomorrow morning.
Inside the federal courthouse this week, a key piece of evidence in the trial will likely be Timpa's autopsy report. The medical examiner lists the manner of death as homicide, but the cause was due to several factors, including the toxic effects of cocaine and stress associated with physical restraint. The report allows both sides to make their case on what caused Timpa to die. The defense in court records claims the drugs, not the officer's actions, are to blame.
After some delays, the trial finally got underway. But surprisingly, the case only took 10 days to come to a close.
I want to share some new details now as a Dallas County civil jury awarded a man $1 million for the death of his father. Criminal charges were dropped against the officers, but this civil trial involved Officer David Dillard. The jury found that he and 2 others violated Timpa's constitutional rights. The other 2 officers were protected by qualified immunity.
That's right. The jury awarded Anthony's son $1 million in compensation, but nothing to his parents, and they found that 2 of the officers were entitled to qualified immunity. Considering the landscape of settlements that are being received in the wake of George Floyd's incident, this is far from just compensation for what happened to Anthony. He died under almost the exact same circumstances as George Floyd, and George Floyd's estate received a $27 million settlement. That's just objectively unfair, and it left a lot of people asking questions. Shortly after the verdict was announced, 2 of the jurors decided to go to WFAA News and do a broadcast in an attempt to explain how they reached this decision.
We are getting more insight into what happened during jury deliberations in the federal trial for Dallas police officers accused of violating Tony Timpa's constitutional rights. Criminal charges were dropped against those officers, but in a civil trial in federal court last week, the jury found 3 of those officers did violate Timpa's rights. They awarded his son $1 million, but gave nothing to his parents or his estate. 2 jurors who struggled with that outcome shared with the media how they felt about it.
And I feel like we decided to agree to the $1 million to Dominguez because in our book, in our eyes, we were winning, and we were able to put it out there that Tony's rights were violated, and we're hopeful that the Dallas Police Department will look at that and hold their officers accountable.
Now, although the case had gone to trial, the legal battle wasn't over just yet. The jury verdict in September of 23 did not end the case. All it did was resolve the questions that were put to that jury under very specific instructions for very specific plaintiffs. Once the verdict came back, the lawsuit immediately entered a post-trial phase, which can be just as consequential as the trial itself. At that point, the case shifted from a jury question to a risk management and settlement question for the city. With the jury already having found constitutional violations, the city was facing the prospect of continued litigation, potential appellate rulings, and the very real possibility of further financial liability. Rather than rolling the dice on the next phase, the city of Dallas entered settlement negotiations with the remaining plaintiffs.
Dallas City Council approved a $2.5 million settlement in the Tony Timpa wrongful death lawsuit. A federal jury found 3 of the 4 officers violated Timpa's constitutional rights by using excessive force.
The settlement was awarded to Anthony's son, his mother, and his estate, and it drew a close to Anthony's story. In the end, Anthony's life and suffering were valued at $3.5 million. Like I've said in other videos, I like to tell these stories so that they re-enter our collective conscience every once in a while and remind us not only of the victims who have suffered at the hands of police misconduct, but also the common threads that we tend to see in these cases. For me, this case really illustrates how long and arduous the journey to closure can be in situations like this. For someone like Vicky, time is not a matter of due process. For months, she woke up every day knowing that her son had passed away in a state of terror, but was told over and over again that she wasn't allowed to see it for herself. The time between a tragedy at the hands of a government actor and the resolution of those actions is a dark void for many people that is difficult to escape. On top of dealing with the grief and trauma of having experienced misconduct, victims have to endure years of red tape, undue scrutiny, and endless paperwork to seek justice. And while they're doing that, they still have to go to work, pay their bills, feed their kids, and ensure that their social and family lives don't just completely fall apart. Now, the American judicial system is designed to move slow on purpose. It is supposed to be a function of protecting the innocent and ensuring that accuracy is maintained and that rash decisions are avoided. But when you're having to maintain a normal life while contending with the psychological and physical damage of a bad police interaction, this process can feel much more like a punishment than an actual road to resolution. Depression doesn't wait for an appellate ruling to strike you. Grief doesn't care if a motion is still under advisement. The only thing people in this situation can do is wait, hope, and take it one day at a time. And getting over something like this is almost impossible when the system itself is keeping you suspended in place for years on end. This case and many others add true color to the old saying that courts are places where the law catches up to life, often long after the damage has already been done. If you made it to the end of this video, then thank you very much for sticking around. The longer you watch these videos, the more likely they are to be shown to more people. So it really helps the channel grow when you stick around and watch to the end. Liking and subscribing also helps if you wouldn't mind taking the time to dedicate a few clicks to supporting this channel. But again, thank you for being here. That's all I got for you today, folks. I'll see you in the next one. Cheers.
It's real hard to hear my son scream, "Help me," and cry. And they laugh at him and they torture him and they kill him and they have fun doing it and they keep doing it even when he's not breathing, and then they're still making jokes because, see, it was fun for them. They were all in a circle having fun, laughing. They all had fun.